This is an Asian cabinet that I've designed that I really like a lot. It's been very popular. The circle that is hard to see in the drawing, but you'll see in the finished piece, is being cut out on the bandsaw there. Now I'm getting ready to route a rabbet around that circle so that when the quilted maple circle is fitted to it, it will create a nice little glue joint. The circle, in a way, signifies the universe and how life is never ending, and many, many things in the universe are circular. And here we're fitting it together. Now I'm getting ready to use some biscuits to join the legs to the side panel of the cabinet. And the biscuits help reinforce that glue joint along the leg there. And I like to use about 3 biscuits, about 10 inches or so apart. Creates a good strong joint. Clamp it together with some good solid pipe clamps. This is a template that I made that would fit to the screws to the bottom of the sander, the belt sander, so that when I'm sanding it, I get into the inside curves there at the very top. It creates a nice sanding, rough sanding, I guess you would say, finish, and then eventually I get into use a random orbit sander for creating a real super fine finish and bringing out the grain. But that template creates that curve that we need there. Now I'm routing out the slot to receive the band that will divide the circle of quilted maple to the door, which is black walnut. And the reason why I route that out is to create like a frame for the circle, which is and the inlay that I will do in here is laid up in strips that are about a 1/16 of an inch thick, because the groove is about a 1/4 inch wide. They're just a hair under a 1/16 of an inch so that I can have enough room to get the glue on there and get it into the slot, because it's not always easy sometimes. And you even taper the edges a little bit just so it can get started. Now I'm adding the quilted maple to the black walnut, and it has to be done in layers so that you create a light line between the black walnut and a dark line between the quilted maple. So you'll see that in the finished piece when we get around there. So fitting it into the groove here, I just work it in with my thumbs, just slightly a little bit, just to get it started enough so that when I get it all the way around there, then I can come back with a hammer and a wood block and tap it down so that it really fits in good and snug, and the glue in there fills in all the spaces so that eventually the next step will be to sand that down, cut the ends off of the door where it's flush, and then sand the inlay down so it's flush with the surface of the door with about a 80 grit sandpaper. And then after that, we get into like I said, the random orbit sanding, which really gets down into some super fine sanding, 120 grit, 220 grit, then 320 grit, and then we start putting the oil on. We actually wet sand the wood with 600 grit wet dry sandpaper. Smoothing down the edge with 80 grit sandpaper, and creating a slight bevel so that when you open and close the doors, they don't rub against each other. And then the coup de grace of, after all this fine sanding, is putting the first coat of oil on, because as you can see, after you've done the sanding, which looks pretty good, but once you add the oil, everything becomes three-dimensional. And it's almost a religious experience when that happens. It's so, and then by sanding, especially here with this black walnut and the quilted maple, the dark walnut fine sanding goes into the end grain of the quilted maple, which helps it stand out and create a real three-dimensional look here, which you can see at this point. Once I start adding the oil to the finished cabinet, basically the cabinet is completely finished now as far as the structure of it, and bringing out the color with the oil. And then I put the oil on as an initial coat to really bring out the color of the wood. after I let this dry, the oil, it's a Watco natural oil finish. After I let it dry for about 4 days, so it's really good and dry, then I start applying wipe-on polyurethane varnish. And that's done with put on with a rag. Here, I like to get into the inside corners with the oil, getting it out of the corners so the distribution is very even. After you do the oil, then the 4 or 5 coats of varnish really bring out the complete color in the piece.